signal. All right, here we go. Welcome everyone to our Monday, September the 23rd, 2024 Business Board meeting. I call the meeting to order, and I call on our treasurer, Mr. Bertram, to call the roll, please.
Mr. Moore?
Here.
Mrs. Stewart?
Here.
Mrs. Schreiber?
Here.
Dr. Urso?
I'm here.
And Mrs. Snow is absent this evening.
Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, complaints? No?
We will have none of those
None of
this
those?
evening.
I always throw it out there. Mr. Bertram?
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Stewart?
Yes.
Mrs. Schreiber?
Yes.
Dr. Urso?
Yes. Does not appear to be any public participation this evening, so it brings us to tonight's consent agenda. Again, is there a motion for approval?
So move.
Thank you, Verlena. In a second.
Second.
You guys are on top of it tonight. Any questions, comments? Anything to highlight, Mr. Bertram, Ms. Hauser?
Really, we just have 2 contracts this evening for a couple of our students that are going to be placed out. We have a contract for a visually impaired teacher and a special case for transportation. Pretty light agenda this evening. Then we have our personnel agenda.
Sounds good.
We also have a donation from Big B Coffee, our friends at Big B Coffee, and they decided to run a school drive to help students buy school supplies that needed them. So we're very thankful to our friends at Big B Coffee today.
They've been a great asset.
Yeah.
They were new to the community, but it seems like they've been highly involved, and so appreciate them. Any comments, anything? All right, then, Mr. Bertram.
Mrs. Stewart?
Yes.
Mrs. Schreiber?
Yes.
Dr. Urso?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
All right. Moving along to Human Resources Personnel, Agenda B, the Stephen Urso agenda. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Thank you, Todd. In a second.
Second.
Thank you, Verlena. Mr. Bertram, when you're ready.
Mrs. Schreiber?
Yes.
Dr. Urso?
Abstain?
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Stewart?
Yes.
All right, my brother appreciates it. Moving on to business. Under business, we have an agreement for the school resource officer. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
In a second, please.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions, comments regarding this? I'll say something prior. I appreciate all the work that went into this contract. I appreciate our city and our officers that are in our buildings. I know some of them. They volunteer. They are huge advocates for our students. I think our community is better off having our officers in our buildings. And to know that student safety, community safety is paramount. And to know that we have the finest folks in Middletown serving our buildings gives me comfort and hopefully gives our community comfort.
Ditto.
I just had one quick question. I know that the contract itself, I was trying to look through some of the details on this particular contract, but it did say something about vehicle maintenance on the vehicle. Is that new for this particular contract, or is that?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Just.
And it's, again, we have an estimate in there. Doesn't mean we pay that full amount each and every year. It's just based on what actual costs are to maintain and repair those vehicles.
Okay. No problem. Thank you. That's all I have.
Any other questions? Todd, thank you for that.
I did notice and this is probably super minor, but towards the end of the contract, it referenced the 2022 date. I did not know if that was an error or if it was.
That's an error. This
Okay.
will be for 24-25, and it's a one-year contract.
Yeah, I saw that up at the top and then at the bottom it had
Glad you saw that.
referenced it, and I was. Yeah.
I'll cross it out, make it right in our contract before I forward it to the city.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, then, Mr. Bertram.
Dr. Urso?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Stewart?
Yes.
And Mrs. Schreiber?
Yes.
I'm going to pause a second. It seems like we're at committee reports. Ms. Hauser, did any committees do anything within the time frame?
Yes, we did. We had our City and Schools meeting on September 13th, where Dr. Urso and I met with Mayor Slampka and the interim city manager, Nathan Cahill. We spent about an hour together talking about the partnerships between the city and the schools, and really how important it is that the city and the schools continue to work together. Also talked about sometimes that there is some miscommunication when it comes to facts out there in the community, and we talked about how the best thing to do is that we both live right here in this building. We're on the 4th floor. Our doors are always open to come right on upstairs, sit down, have conversations. But really, at the end of the day, if we're going to make a difference here in Middletown, that we all need to be working together and being on the same page. And Mayor Slampka and Mr. Cahill agreed wholeheartedly. So moving forward, that is our goal, working together for the betterment of the schools and the community of Middletown. So that was our monthly meeting that we had this month, and we have that meeting every month. Do you want to say anything?
No.
We're
it's
both
just-
at the same meeting?
Yeah, you did a nice job articulating what went on. It was made clear that the relationship between the city and the schools needs to be one that's nurtured. It's critical. That's why we're in this building, is to have correspondence and to work together. I think there's a strong history of doing that, and look forward to continued working together and collaborating and trying to consolidate resources and conversations in ways that move our city and our schools together, because if they're isolated, then you get nowhere. And so we depend on them as much as they depend on us. Any other committees?
No, policy committee, we did not, and DLT is coming up.
All right,
So we're good.
we're good. And then Board of Education reports and activity. Mr. Moore, anything to report tonight?
I do. Along those lines, about the relationship between Middletown City Schools and our city, particularly our members of City Council, I think that all of us in this room certainly want to maintain a very strong relationship with council. I'll be honest, I'm not certain where that relationship or why that relationship has taken off in a bad direction. Certainly know one's intention here, I know that to be true. But I think it might do us, I wanted to ask my colleagues here if it would do us some good if maybe we had some time with council, maybe hold a meeting with council, joint meeting, and talk about academic challenges, academic performance, and particularly focus on the fair funding model and our finances. I think those two issues would do hopefully some good to resolve some of the questions, or maybe even some of the misrepresentations that I continue to hear at the council meetings. You know, I've gone to the meetings on different issues. I'm hoping that if there's a way that we can open dialogue between these two issues. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding on some of the complexity within these issues. But certainly, I think that all of us want to see our city do well and see our kids succeed. So if we can open up a conversation, I would like to recommend that we look at academic and maybe some of the financial questions that were raised here recently. If folks would be interested in doing that, at least let's act in good faith and try to engage in that conversation. So that's really all I have. And also, I want to speak to Mr. Bertram. I'm so glad that you're feeling better at this point, and it's good to see your smiling face this evening. So I will close there. Yeah.
Ms. Stewart?
Yeah, really glad to see you, Randy. I came to check on you last week and talked to Andy for a long time, and I felt better after I talked to Andy, and I'm glad you're here tonight. I don't think getting with this city is a bad idea. I would maybe encourage us to work on the relationship part. I love that you guys are meeting with them again just to get that dialogue and conversation started. As a longtime Middletown resident and city employee and now on the board, we have nothing to gain and everything to lose by not building that relationship. So I would just encourage us to let go of whatever we have that's standing in the way of building a good relationship. And sometimes you just have to take one for the team and behave well or whatever, whatever. But it is so critical that we create a really strong relationship for the community. We cannot compromise that relationship in any way. So I would just encourage that we focus on the relationship first, because that's where a lot of times misunderstanding can come in, just because we're not on the same page, and you really can't get past anything else because we're not on the same page. So thank you, Chris and Debbie, for doing that.
Thank you.
And you got your Butler Tech
Yep.
invites, so
Thank you.
hope you can make it.
Ms. Schreiber?
I'd like to echo exactly what Mrs. Stewart and Mr. Moore said. I don't know how, I think we live in a world full of misinformation, and I think we all have to be very cautious both ways. I agree that we need to find a way to make sure that the correct information is available and everyone is looking at it. I'm not quite sure how that was going to happen. I know that some years ago, and I would be in favor of meeting with the council. However, I remember some years ago, when we were first on board, we had a meeting with the city council, and it was, they met, and then we all switched chairs, and we met. It was like two separate meetings, and that's not, I don't see where that's the kind of thing that would help us at all. I think one of the, it has to be a slow growth of figuring out where there seems to be some discontent or something. I don't understand where it came from, because I think we celebrate so many good things going on in Middletown schools. I'm so proud of all the things that have been going on in the past few years, and so I am not quite sure what inspired this. I'm very confused about that. So anything that can clear that up would make me happy, because I see Middletown schools in a very positive light, and I'm happy to be a part of this. So I have questions, and I have concerns, and I agree that I think we have everything to be proud of here, and I would hope, I don't know how to make that across the boards to both groups of people, but it is definitely a goal to work on. Thank you.
Thank you. To Todd's request, I would be in favor. I think we should wait until they have a seat that they're looking to fill within the council. And just being careful in terms of how we would move towards that. And to Verlena's point, we haven't stopped meeting with them. It's been a consistent, there was transition within city managers and some of that, but we have been consistent over the years, making a point, no matter who's on council, who is the city manager, that we do our part to communicate.
Good.
And would welcome any of you, if you'd like to sit in on one of those meetings.
Are we allowed to do that more than
Just
two?
two.
Just
Two at
two
a
of you
time.
at a time.
And so
Okay.
to be a part of that conversation, I would encourage council to consider bringing another one of their council members to the conversation too.
I would love to go sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're welcome anytime.
And so with that, yeah, anything that can allow us to collaborate, work together, and push in the same direction and not in opposite would be approved. I would like to raise up one of our bus drivers, Dimitri. I don't know Dimitri's last name, but he drove the golf team, the women's golf team, and my daughter's on the golf team. And after the match, bought them all Dairy Queen on the way home. And
Isn't that nice?
my daughter was like, he's just the nicest guy that you would come across. And so she also said he has a really cool accent. And so that was her takeaways. But wanted to just raise up Dimitri and encourage Mr. Stotzing or whoever to allow him to know that the good deeds are noticed and appreciated. And I know all the young ladies on the golf team and the golf coaches were deeply touched and appreciative of
Pass that on.
his generosity. I'd like to raise up a few of our athletes who are this week's Athlete of the Week. Graham Earls, a junior cross-country runner, just a teammate guy. I read the little thing about him, and it just seems like he's the guy that you want on your team. Does everything well, but is a great teammate. Jack Allen, a senior soccer player, has had a nice week, scored some goals. Always another good teammate. Feisty little player. Connor Murphy, a senior soccer player. I know Connor well, and I'm super proud of him. He's just a great little athlete and an even better person. And the goalie, David Childers, a junior soccer player, is, I think, second in the league right now in the number of saves that he has from the goalie position. And so to the four of them and to all of our athletes, excited about our football program. They've been working really hard. Our band is still one of the best, if not the best bands in the area. And really encouraged by fall sports and just fall activity, getting our kids out in the community. I would be curious in terms of the state report card. It came out recently to have a conversation, allow the community to understand better the nuts and bolts of that document. Encouraged by the progress, but then also would like to understand how we're going to continue to move. One document doesn't speak to all the great things or all the things that we need to improve on, but it is a document that the community and others put faith in. It's an indicator, and in that vein, it would be nice to understand and be able to communicate that information. And so over the next days and weeks, I know there's a lot on your plate, but to have that conversation, I think would be valuable. And to echo my colleagues, having Mr. Bertram here, always enjoy your bad jokes and good smiles.
That's how you know he's back.
More
Yeah.
dad jokes to come.
I appreciate them, yeah.
Plenty more where those came from,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, you're good at those. And so I think that's all I have tonight. And so, Mr. Bertram.
All right, I do have a few items. Well, first one, thanks for all the well wishes while I was down and out for a day or two. Glad to be here, and I do love the work that I do for the city and for the kids, and I'm not ready to stop yet, so I'm going to keep on going. I did share with you a hard copy of the fraud risk assessment that is required by the state auditors. For those of you who've completed it,
Do I get a
very
gold
good. You get
star
A+.
for being-
The rest of you are working on Bs or below at this point. But just complete that. I will try to simplify. I know there's a lot of questions. You may not have an idea what they're asking. So I'll try to get some guidance from our auditors on what is expected from board members to answer those questions, the harder ones. Prior, they would just pretty much ask the board president, is he aware of any fraud or risk that the district has taken on this past year that they haven't taken on in the past. It was as simple as that. This one's a little more thorough, and with state auditors, they do take more time and look at things a little bit deeper. Second item is we did close on the $2 million transportation loan with Webster Bank. It went very smoothly. We ended up with a 4.12% rate. And we did borrow for 12 years. The 10-year rate was just a few bips below that, so we went ahead and extended it out to leave the payment a little bit lower on the PI fund. We do have provisions in the loan, though, without penalty if we do decide to pay it off early. So we're in good shape there. And we did have 4 banks that did bid on that, and 3 of them were pretty competitive, and 1 was out quite a ways. So I was happy with the process in doing that. And then the last item that I have, one of the misnomers that we're hearing from City Council is how the increased property valuations in Middletown, how much revenue the district does receive. So in the monthly newsletter that just went out for September, and it's called By the Numbers, the Treasure section, it's a few pages down, but it is leading in the number of clicks so far
Yes, it
for the
is.
letter that's gone out. You will see a little section down there and a link to click on to get more details on cause and effect of us being a wealthier district and the revenue than the state does pay us, or pays us less the wealthier we get. So it isn't a dollar for dollar conversion that the state is receiving on all those increased property taxes that our taxpayers are paying. In fact, at the end of 3 years, the state keeps $2 of that additional revenue. We get $1. So it is a huge misnomer. So thank you for bringing that up. And that's all I have this evening.
There you have. Okay, so we had our first week of experiential learning last week in the high school, which was very exciting. I think I've been leading up and sharing this with you, but it actually happened last week. Wednesday and Thursday, our high school was filled with, we had a different schedule. So all of our students, grades 9 through 12, participated in experiential learning is a fancy name for learning by doing. So walking the halls of the high school, we observed podcasts in our English classrooms. We had comic books going on some of our English classrooms. We had inertia in our physical science, hands-on learning. We had our chemistry class out in the courtyards. But it was all, and if you recall, it's the time had, classes had 90 minutes. So there was additional timing for these class lessons, students for the hands-on lessons. So like I said, the teachers are being surveyed, students are being surveyed, administrators are walking through the classrooms collecting data, and this is going to be going on for the next 5 weeks, this pilot, and in anticipation for next year's Middletown High School redesign. So it's pretty exciting. If you're ever free on a Wednesday or Thursday and you'd like to do a walkthrough and see the experiential learning that's going on at the high school, let me know. I'll be glad to walk you through. Or ask your daughter, or ask a high school student. It was a little bit different for them. The classes were a little bit longer, which I've mentioned. But this is what the teachers have been leading up to, the planning, the training that's gone into this. They really knocked it out of the ballpark. Sent you a few pictures. If you follow on Facebook, quite a few pictures out there from the experiential learning. So pretty exciting. We're getting ready. This Wednesday and Thursday will be our second week. So looking forward to the podcast again in the English classrooms. So pretty exciting.
Every Wednesday and Thursday, so you have 3 more weeks, right?
We fight this week and then 4 more weeks. 6
more
weeks
weeks.
total for this one.
I think it's interesting. I don't know if anybody reads a publication called Edutopia, but they have very interesting articles on all aspects of education. And it's not just for education people, but some of the things are even, apropos for just a person who wants to know what's going on across the country. And there was an article I read just in last week's publication that was so positive about this very type of program that's going on at the high school.
It's exciting,
It,
right?
it's hitting what people believe is the necessary points in education that we need to kind of focus on more.
And it's all tied to, the state standards, the curriculum. It's just looking at the curriculum a little bit differently and delivering the experience a little bit differently. So, and then also we've embedded workforce development and really a business perspective into the lessons also. So come visit.
I do. I want to go.
Is there anything else?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, if there's nothing else, is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Bertram?
All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Yes,
Happy
let's
day.
go.